Good morning, guys. I haven't told you one of my stories in a while. Back in 2007, I was headed to Fort Polk for my first day of the military, and it was going to be like a 17-hour drive, and I didn't want to leave home. So I decided to wait as long as I could, barely have enough time to get there because mama's boy. Wanted to be around the family as much as I could before I was going off to the service. It was very scary. It was a new change for me in my life, but I was also looking forward to it. And at the time, I was really serious with a girl. I was in a relationship, and everything was going well. I thought it was going well anyway. I jump in the car, and I'm driving. I get about 6 hours into my drive, 5.5 hours, something like that, in my drive, and I hit Effingham, Illinois. And as I'm driving down the road, I'm probably about a quarter mile from this overpass, and I see a truck come across the road, go through one of them really wide medians with water barrels on both sides. The guy come up the embankment, and he hit this car that was down the road head on, spun the car around to where it was facing the opposite direction it was going, and I was the closest car to the accident. So me being combat lifesaver certified and just dealing with different scenarios in my life, and going through basic training and my job training, and just knowing what I knew, I didn't freeze up at all. I jumped on the phone with the police. I called them. I gave them the mile marker I was closest to. I jumped out of the car. I sprung into action. I went to both vehicles. I assessed the situation. In the truck, there was an old man and an old woman, and the old lady, she was fairly overweight, and they had flopped spots in the truck, and she was now on the driver's side. The truck was laying on its side. It flipped when it hit the car in the air, and it landed on its side, and the old man ended up underneath her on the door side on the ground. And I ran to the other vehicle to see what was going on, and there were two old ladies in this old square body Lincoln Town Car. Well, she had, from the impact where it came in from the front of the vehicle toward her driver door, where it hit her, she had, when the window busted, because her hand was on the wheel, I guess the glass and stuff came in, and the way the impact hit, it ripped her arm open from her shoulder all the way to her elbow. And you know how old people are, where they have fair skins, like, paper thin. She was bleeding all over the place. I had to fight to get the door open. Once I did get the door open, because it was smashed into the door lock assembly, I got the door open, and the lady was bleeding so bad, I had to take my belt off, and I had to strap her up at the shoulder to cut the blood flow off so much. And the bleeding stopped momentarily. I pulled her out of the vehicle, pulled her over the side, and leaned her up against the guardrail. About that time, a sergeant from Fort Campbell was headed back to Illinois. He had saw what happened, and he jumped out of his vehicle on the other side of the road, and he ran across, and he grabbed his tourniquet, he grabbed his whole medical kit, and he started assessing her right away. Well, where it hit the vehicle in the dash, it pushed the dash into the seats, kind of, and the lady on the other side, I had to get her out of the vehicle because I started smelling fuel. So I propped myself up against the center console, and I took my feet, and these are these freak incidents where you just don't know where the strength comes from. And I put my feet in the dash, and I pushed as hard as I could just to get a few inches of room, because I was not going to be able to get that lady past the steering wheel. And I pulled that old lady across the seats, and as I stood her up outside the vehicle, she fainted. She passed out. I grabbed her real quick before she could hit the ground, because I was setting her down, and she was out of it. So I kind of laid her next to the other lady where the medic was, and I quickly grabbed a pulse. She's fine. She just passed out. And I ran to the other vehicle that was on the ground laying on its side. And I couldn't figure out exactly how I wanted to get these people out of there. So as the vehicle's laying on its side, I jump up on top of the vehicle, and I open the door, and I grab the door, and I pull the door back as hard as I could, and I broke the latch that was inside the door, just so the door could stay open. And then I noticed to my left, there's some guy on a cell phone. He's recording the whole entire thing as I'm doing this. And this lady is really heavy. I jump back down on the ground, and I put my hands inside the vehicle. And the lady's almost standing up on top of her husband. I tried to reach down in there and grab my arm and put it up underneath her leg. And, you know, being overweight and really large legs and stuff like that, I could barely get I could barely get a grip on the bottom of her leg to be able to try to pull her up and out of the vehicle. So I know I was hurting her when I did it, but I pulled her up just enough to where I only had about this much room to clear the side of the vehicle to get her out. And this guy's still standing there recording me. And I looked to the left and I said, will you put that damn phone down and get over here and help me? And the guy, oh my God, yeah, sorry. And he puts the phone down on the front of the truck, and he comes over there and he helps me get the lady out in the last two or 3 inches, whatever it was, just to barely clear her butt from the side of the door. And I mean, if she hadn't been overweight, I could have pulled her out of there no problem. But this lady was every bit of 300 pounds, and it was really difficult for me to get her up and over that lip of that truck. Well, I couldn't figure out how to get the old man out because he had slipped down into the seat and he was laying weird and his legs were pinned up underneath the dash. So I had my combat boots on, my steel toes. And I said, sir, you ain't going to like this, but the only way I'm going to get you out because the vehicle's laying on its side is I'm going to have to kick the back glass out of this cab, and I'm going to have to pull you through that glass. And he said, please help me, oh my God. I said, is your leg broke? I don't want to touch you if your leg's broke. I smell an antifreeze and gas in his vehicle as well. So I kicked the back window out. I took my ACU top off and I laid it around the edge because there may be some shards there. And I drug it back a few times to pull as much glass out as I could. And I laid that ACU top there. And I yanked this old man because he said he didn't think anything was broke. He just pinned up underneath the dash. And as I pulled him, he kind of twisted a little bit, and I pulled him right out of that back glass. Pulled him over onto the road. The fire department got there just as I was clearing everything, just as I get everybody out and got him over to the side of the road. And the detectives and stuff came to investigate what was going on. And it was nice. It was nice being able to help somebody. It's nice being able to remember the ability that God's given me to adapt in many situations, to not only be a kind person to people and help educate people on things, but to be able to help people in extreme need. And I know when you help people, sometimes you can make the situation worse, but it was just a decision that I made and I went with it. And it is something that I remember to this day. It's something I'm proud of. And they did an article in the paper on it. It's been a while. I haven't been able to find it. I lost it on the internet. I was recognized through my battalion. The police department did call and report what happened to my unit because they didn't want me to get in trouble for being late, even though I wasn't late. I was so shook up by the situation that even to this day, I remember that when I started getting tired going down the road, and I try to use that as fuel for my fire, and just keep driving on in life and just keep giving back and trying to do as much as I can to help people. And I just wanted to share one of my many stories that I have in my life, that we're human. We should be doing stuff for other people. We should be helping people out. Acts of kindness and just, I'm not a hero. I just did something that I think we should do. I feel like that old lady that was bleeding all out down her arm and stuff like that, she probably would have bled out if I hadn't stopped and stopped the bleeding. And at least for that kind medic to come over there and take over and do what I couldn't do, because he's obviously way more trained than me. At that point, he had many years in the service, and he was a actual combat medic. That was his job. Just one of the little tidbit stories in my life, guys. I mean, I know it's not keto, but I feel like I like sharing my stories with you guys. And a lot of times I can't tell it to people, so why not tell it to you? You guys are like the next best thing to family. So anyhow, it's one of my stories. I appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Keto One.